Welcome to another episode of the Overcoming Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Allison. Today's guest is Elle Graniel. I can't wait to get to this conversation and hear her story of how she overcame adversities. Hey, Elle, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Love that intro. Pretty powerful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. If you can, let's tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so El Grinnell, and I founded True Speak over 25 years ago. And so, well, we'll talk a little bit about that process
Right.
later, but basically to date, I've been at this for over 25 years as an inter and intra personal communication authority. So that's getting the voices straight in your head first before things come flying out of your mouth that you may have to apologize for or whatever, right? So we conquer that. I like to call it the bully in the brain, right?
Mhm.
Imposter syndrome, all of those things is the foundation of the work that lights me up and what I do. And so I'm certified in a plethora of things like neurolinguistic programming, negotiation, oh gosh, unlimited fitness platforms. I was a fitness instructor
I saw
before.
that. I saw that.
And so basically, I know how to count to 8 in like the most creative ways that anybody could ever imagine. But anyhow, so I also love to write. I've published 3 books. The most recent is The Team Whisperer: Successfully Lead a Cross-Generation Race and Gender Team. And I wrote that for entry to mid-level managers who got pushed up
Mhm.
after, COVID, and the pandemic just put everybody in a lot of places they've never been in before. So these new managers aren't getting the training that they need. So people don't want to come back to work. They don't want to show up. And to me, that's heartbreaking because if you're a leader, a true leader, not a manager, then people want to show up and they want to perform because they love the way you make them feel and seen and heard.
You know, that's a topic that I want to get into when it comes to leadership and some of these things that's tied to like the C-suite level and the middle management level, because I see some discrepancies there too whenever we're doing some training as well too. You know, thank you so much for sharing your intro, Elle. Your story is so inspiring. I want to ask you if you could tell us a little bit about what is the motivation or the passion that led you on this particular path, because being able to help people communicate effectively, I think that takes a good skill, and to do that authentically, kind of like what you were saying, where people just say what they should be saying, opposed to the limiting beliefs or the imposter syndrome that's tied to that. Can you speak towards that in regards to like how you got that gift to be empowering people to do the same thing too as well?
Yeah, that's such a deep question for me because when I really think about it, how did I get that gift? It goes back to being a survivor of secondhand domestic violence
Wow.
and having being the oldest, having to protect my brother and sister from what was going on to my mother, right? And
Right.
so at a very young age, I began to learn to be a very good listener
Mm,
because by listening and picking up nonverbal cues, right, body language, tonality, all of that, I could at a very young age know stuff's gonna happen,
mm,
stuff's going down, right? And so now only as an adult do I realize that that's where the skill began, and I didn't ask for it, it just happened. And
mhm.
it turned into stuff that now I'm passionate about, right? So using the words properly, asking for what you want instead of what you don't, creating this vibration of love and appreciation so that you draw more of that into your life, right? So at one point in time, the pivotal moment was I started getting into motivational stuff a long time ago in the 80s, maybe, Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, some of these greats. And One day it just clicked, and I don't exactly remember when or how. I just know that one day, all of a sudden, things switched, and the voice in my head said, "You have the power. You have the control." And at that moment, I stopped blaming my father, society, poverty, the government, and everything changed. From that moment on, I'm getting goosebumps. From that moment, stellar. It's been stellar.
So, if you could talk a little bit now about your company and what you do, and how are you, getting the best out of people when some of them are struggling with. I believe sometimes that some of your personal upbringing does carry over into the workplace,
Mhm.
and people don't really say too much. They're not involved. They're kind of like stay in their cubicles and those types of things. Can you talk a little bit about like the type of people that you're working with, or the companies that you're working with, and things that you're doing for them to get up and speak whenever they're inside of these workplaces?
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. So the book, The Team Whisperer, has 10 chapters, that have been turned into 10 modules, teaching modules, right?
Okay.
So if somebody wants to gain the skills, that's the best way to do it. And my favorite modules are the lost art of listening, because people are all about interrupting. And I just did on my YouTube channel, a vlog on, are you giving advice or advice? And so
Mm,
you become a better listener, then you can speak to the person in the way that they want to be spoken to, right? So you're not saying you should do it this way. You're saying, I heard what you said and I have some thoughts on that. Would you like to
mm.
hear? Right. So empathy. And then, of course, there's a chapter on raising your emotional intelligence. And people have heard that. It's a buzz phrase, kind of, sort of, right? But what does it actually mean? And my experience is that, because most of the managers that I work with and the companies that I work with are male dominated, and men are very fearful when you throw the word emotional out there.
Yes, yes.
And so that's why emotional intelligence shows you how to raise yours by being aware of what's going on around you. It's not about, can you show your emotions? Yeah, in the right times, in the right places, but it's, can you recognize the emotions that are swirling around you and what your role is in that? Because so many times, this is what broke my heart about writing the book, Michael, when I was doing the research for it. The number one standout complaint I heard was that managers will not approach confrontation, and they just ignore it and think it's going to work itself out. So if two people in the workplace are arguing or don't like each other or backstabbing, the manager should take that head on and deal with it with confidence, and power and authority. But that's not what happens. They let it run its course until either somebody quits or it explodes. And it doesn't have to be that way. The workplace should be it should be where people actually wake up and want to go to. The workplace should be something you look forward to. It's another tribe, it's another team, it's another opportunity. And so those are my two favorite chapters of the 10. And then I guess the third, because I always do triads, is how to become a meeting master. People hate meetings. They hate me. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's because you lead boring meetings. You just talk the whole time. And so, there's a chapter on how to make meetings that people actually look forward to and will actually compliment you at the end and say, that was enjoyable. I learned a lot.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. For our listeners that's listening, and they're in their workplace and they're struggling with some of the same things that you just said, what are some things that they could do when it comes to like conflict resolution for that CEO that's listening to this podcast? What are like two or three things that they could do when it comes to conflict resolution?
So if we start at the base level, the root of the problem is with the staff, right?
Hmm.
So if the staff can be brave enough to go to their supervisor, manager, boss, whoever, and say, look, you might not be aware, but this is what's happening, and I'm uncomfortable. And, I honestly just don't want to show up anymore. Now, sometimes, sadly, their direct supervisor is the problem, meaning they're ignoring what's going on or
Yeah.
they're even fueling it. So now the next step would be sometimes you do have to overstep, but I suggest that you don't, because that makes things longer to process, right? So, but if you do need to overstep and go one level up, then you will tell that person why you have overstepped. Say, look, I'm coming to you and I know I'm breaking the chain of command, and this is why. So start right there, and you don't say things like, my boss is a jerk or whatever. You say, this is why, right? So just the facts, ma'am. And then hopefully that manager has been trained in conflict resolution, because they're one up. So those one ups get the trainings. It's the boots on the ground managers that don't always get the training. So I don't want to say it's not their fault, but I do want to say that they weren't given the skills to manage conflict resolution. So then if you're higher up, CEO, manager, owner, whatever that is, then you practice the listening skills. You're taking notes. I heard what you said. And then you're going to ask them, well, how would you like to see this resolved? And nobody ever asks people that. What would you like to see? What would make you happy? What do you think the best next step could and should be? And then, if they say something silly like, I want him fired, or I want his head on a stick, or, something like that, then you go, okay, well, I understand that. And we can't do that. So what are we going to do? Well, you could fire somebody if they deserve it. Heck yeah. Now it's been documented.
Yeah.
And if you can get enough cases I call those people peacocks or alpha dogs. Sometimes they just got to go.
Mhm.
They're tearing up the company from the inside out, right? And we all know how expensive it is to replace our staff.
It,
It's
it
expensive.
it is extremely expensive, and I agree with you. Sometimes it takes some of those like interventions to get that type of breakthrough that you're looking for. I wanted to touch on something here, and I think it's extremely important when working with people, and you're certified to do it. So, can you elaborate a little bit about the blend of neuro linguistic programming, the learning styles, and you had mentioned earlier about quantum physics inside of like your methodologies when working with companies and things like that? Because I
Mhm.
think sometimes that's like the missing piece. And you did a great job explaining that earlier when like working with different teams. But can you help our listeners around the NLP piece?
Yeah, what's interesting is when we are authorities in what we do, we make the assumption, and I'm guilty of this, we think people know way more than they do.
Hmm.
And I'm blown away when I say I'm certified in NLP and people go, what is that? And I go, oh my gosh. Well, I've been doing it 25 years, but they've been doing it 0 hours, right? And so
Right.
it's on all the things on the planet to know. Not everybody knows everything, you and I included. And so NLP, neuro linguistic programming, is basically the way we bring in information and then repurpose it. And we all do that just a little bit differently, right?
Right.
But for most of us, we bring things in, we store them as images. And then when we repurpose them, sometimes that image can be distorted over time. And so NLP, to me, the foundation is to start with asking for what you want, not what you don't. And because our brains are in it to create, we are from creation. And so then the ego can discreate. But we are similar to AI in the fact that if I say, Alexa, don't play the Backstreet Boys, Alexa's going to go playing the Backstreet Boys, because even AI can't not. And it's the same with our brains. So when we worry about what we don't want, then we're putting that stuff in our minds, right? And when we say what we don't want, like don't be late, then our brain is like, oh, late? What are we focusing on? So to me, that's the foundation in my work. That's the part of NLP, which is very vast. Volumes have been written. But for me, the foundation is get those words proper, get them straight, ask for what you want instead of what you don't. Um, which is my tagline for True Speak. And then the neuroscience, the quantum physics behind that is
Mhm.
our neural pathways have plasticity, meaning they can be changed at any given time
Mhm.
with some repetition. And that's why I'm not a fan of affirmations, because if you say to yourself, I never eat junk food anymore, your brain will go, who are you talking about? If junk food is your go-to. So
Mhm.
you've got to baby step into that so that you actually change the way you think. And once you change the way you think, then you begin to act the way you think, right? And speak the way you think. But it starts in these busting up these ways that our brain will just go, and people go, oh, this always happens to me. Yeah, because that's the way your brain goes. Why does this always happen to me? Not a good question. You want to ask yourself, how can I change this? I'm ready to change. So that's the basis of NLP. And then the neuroplasticity of our brain is just dying for new, ways to wire and fire together.
I love it. Thank you for that explanation. I was exposed to it about 10 years ago, and when I came back from Iraq, I struggled in my career, personally and professionally as well. And it was not until I went to like Rush University where they actually taught me about NLP and all the things that I was dealing with when it comes to like PTSD and having a traumatic brain injury from all the things that occurred to me from in Iraq. And learning all of those things that you just mentioned brought so much of a breakthrough for me. And I would honestly say like it was more so like a freedom for me in regards to like how I was thinking and how I was processing things. You
Mhm.
know, when you mentioned earlier about say what you want, the truth isn't in you. Can you help empower our audience with what does that truly mean for our listeners? And I say that as in there's somebody that's listening to the show right now, and they're probably just had a bad morning, just had a bad day, or they're struggling, or they need to have a conversation with someone. They need to do something either in their job, in their relationship, or something like that, and they're struggling with that. Can you speak a little bit towards what that means?
Yeah, I would love to. So when I work with businesses, I cannot lead with the success of what I do. And what I mean by that is, I'm one of only a dozen people on the planet certified in a process called transformational meditation. Now,
Mhm.
once I throw that word meditation out there, intellectual, and again, I'm picking on males, go, I don't meditate. I can't meditate. My brain never stops. And so, but I have 100% success rate with helping people meditate. And the reason why is very simple. People have a preconceived notion of what meditation is.
Yeah.
And so once I explain why and here's the neuroplasticity, then the brain can go, okay, now I understand what meditation is not. And now I'm going to find my way to do it. It's like working out, right? So if
Mhm.
somebody told me the only way to get in shape was to run, I'd be the chubbiest person on the planet because I hate running. There's there's thousands. I want a t-shirt that says, if you see me running, you better start because something's coming. There's so many ways to work out, right? Same thing with meditation. You just find the right tool for you. And so what I would tell your listeners right now is if they're not driving, this is just the tip of the iceberg of transformational meditation. But if you're feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, is number one, you've forgotten that you are literally a walking, talking, breathing miracle. Because
Mm.
we come into this planet and our soul is here for a reason and a purpose. And we are perfect in that expression of love and light. And then we allow other things to stick to us, like when you go through a walk in nature and you get those little sticker things on your pants, and you have to come home and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they don't come off easily.
No.
And so life can be like that. So what you do is you close your eyes and you begin to focus on your breath, because the breath, we can go without food and water for days, but we can only go without the breath for a few moments. It
Right.
is the core connection to our true self. So when you close your eyes, you minimize external distractions, then begin to think about what does it feel like to physically breathe in through the nose or mouth, however you're comfortable, and then exhaling out. And if you do 3 rounds of this in really deep, exhale very deep and slow, and remember, when you inhale, you're bringing in all the love and light that's yours by divine right in abundance.
Mhm.
exhale, you slow down and become centered here and now. And after a few rounds of that, you get into the alpha level of consciousness, which is beyond the ego, where you can connect to your true source, your higher power, your God light, and just say, what's my message for today? Or what do I need to know about this situation? And then you listen. Now, if it's your ego pretending to be your true source, you're going to get a lot of blah, blah, chastising, whatever. But if it's your true source, the message is very simple. It's loving, it's kind, it's concise. A lot
Yeah.
of times when I do this, I get the message, remember you're loved. I'm like, okay, fine. So that's what I would advise, that they get quiet, they connect with their true source, they remember what a miracle that they are and how important they are in this lifetime, and then ask for the message for the day.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, so I know that you're also a keynote speaker, and when you get on stage, you're communicating about some of these things that you practice. What are some of the things that you want to be a key takeaway when you're communicating to an audience as well?
I would love for people to always walk away and then share what they learned, right? That's the purpose of takeaways,
Hmm.
is not to have a notebook or whatever. We have volumes of stuff written down that we don't implement. So my key takeaway to people is, whenever you go to a workshop or whatever, a keynote, and you take your notes, immediately review them after the event, go to lunch with people, talk about what you learned and what you liked, right? Those are your takeaways. And then go one step further. When you get home or get back to the office, share or teach somebody else what you just learned. So that's the layered learning. So you heard it, you took notes, you reviewed it, and now you're sharing it. And so you now own this information. And it's not something, I call it shelf help, when people read books
Yeah,
and never do anything about it, right? So to me, that's heartbreaking. So my takeaways are to remember, pay attention, be in the moment, stay off your darn phone, be in the moment, and take those notes, review those notes, and share those notes, because it's not just about you, it's about the ripple effect.
definitely. So you mentioned earlier when we got started that you was previously in the health and nutrition space. I was going to ask you if you could talk a little bit about now the healthy living and incorporating that into like working and incorporated that into like your daily life with your clients that you're working with.
Mhm. You know, they are so intertwined, right?
Mhm.
So, prior to doing the Team Whisperer and the management courses, I was a manager for 24-hour fitness for 24 years and taught group fitness classes forever. And here's the thing, if if you're bringing your work home with you, then
Mhm.
you're stress eating or you're eating comfort food and you're not sleeping at night and you're self-medicating. So when you show up to work the next day, you're not the best person. You're not the best person. And so the way to break those cycles is to, number one, be aware that you're doing it. Ask yourself, what's my first step to make the change, right? And to allow yourself to know that it's possible. I work with people that say, I can't get a good night's sleep. And it's like, yeah, because you keep saying that, let's take
Mhm.
baby steps. And so it's not about counting steps, counting calories, having a salad every day. Yeah, all of those things are wonderful, but it's about, what do you believe is possible for yourself? Can what can you do? Can you move 20 minutes a day? Can you drink more water? Can you get into nature? Can you say I love you when you look in the mirror? There's a plethora. My first book was called, or is called, I should say, I wrote it in 2006. It's 101 health and fitness tips. So the title is Chocolate Cake for the Thighs.
I saw that. That's an interesting title.
Something more serious, get happier and healthier now. 7 steps to improved health and a body you can love. And
Mhm.
that's the whole thing. It's all about this internal chatter. So you radiate health from the inside out, not the outside in. And hoping that a shake or a pill or a drug is going to solve your problems is just keeping you in the hamster wheel. It's just going to be one more thing and then one more thing and then one more thing.
Absolutely. Guys, if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. So, Elle, there's lots of misconception around there when it comes to like setting goals, personal development, motivation,
Mhm.
passion, and all of those different types of things. And you hear it from different sources and things like that. Can you share with our audience what are some of the misconceptions out there around some of those things, and how can they actually like hone in on that and actually get past the misconception and start believing something that is believable and tangible?
Yeah, powerful question. And so on my website, truespeak.us, you can get and it doesn't put you in my system or anything. It's just a free. I wrote an article, Why Motivation is Like Caffeine and
Hmm.
what you can do about it. Like when you're in it, it's all good. But then when you're not, it's like, crashing, in the wrong time zone. And the reason why that happens is because it's easy to get fired up. The maintenance comes in knowing that it's a relationship. Any goal you want is a relationship. Anything you want to achieve, it's a relationship. So it needs to be nurtured. It needs to be reevaluated. It needs to be held close sometimes and go, okay, I get it's not working. What do we want now? So that's the thing. Sometimes we set goals and we're bottom up thinkers, but we look at it from the top down, the big picture. And then or we're big picture thinkers and we don't look at it from the bottom up. And so looking at it either what can I do today and the end result, or here's the end result, what does that look like today? That's a simple way to achieve your goals. And the reason why people struggle is because they don't have a plan. They don't have a great accountability partner, and they're not sure if that's what they want or if it's what somebody else wants for them.
Absolutely. I think something that's also tied around that is what are your like values and what are like some of the core things that are true to you? How can
Mhm.
one actually identify what are their core values?
Identifying the core values goes back to what lights you up, what makes you happy, what kind of people do you enjoy being around, events that you like to do. That starts to tell you what kind of person that you are, because you're really excited about doing these things, right? So get real about it. I love acronyms, so it's get really excited about life. So you
Hmm.
want to find things that are real in your life, and then go back to that, connect with your higher power, take a few breaths and say, why am I here? What's my purpose? And it'll say, to share the light of truth. Okay, so truth is a core value for me. Another day it might be to help others rise. Okay, helping others might be a core value for me, right? So you really get quiet. So you look for what lights you up, and then you get quiet and you hear what your true source is telling you about why you're here. Because darn it, Michael, life is short. We don't come with an expiration date. We're all going to have one. And so hop in now and enjoy the ride.
I 1000% agree with you. I really liked that answer because there's so much distractions out here in this world, and it'll tug at you and pull you in so many different ways. So you giving that answer, hopefully our listeners could take heed to that and actually finding that true power from what you're saying within themselves as well.
Yeah. And if it's quick and easy, you might want to take a step back and ask yourself, why is this quick and easy? Like just take
Mhm.
a look at it before you jump in,
Most
right? Because
definitely.
keep going to the next. We keep looking externally to get our problem solved. And that will last a lifetime.
Absolutely. So, before we get ready to wrap up out of here, what are some strategies for effective communications and building strong relationships, both personally and professionally?
Mhm. Mhm. This is good because it really, like, summarizes the time that we had together.
Right.
Become a better listener. Be in the moment when that person is speaking, right? So honor their message, not interrupt. And then to be able to team up with people so that you're collaborating. Like, if they're bringing something to the table, you're bringing something to the table. One of my favorite sayings is teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Hmm. That's
And
right.
then lastly is to continue to keep evaluating. How is this going? How do I want it to go? Am I on track? And that's not in a scary way. It's in a way that shows everybody that this is who you are, this is how you show up. Look at me, I'm authentic. And when you do that, people want to be on your team and they want to support you in where you're going.
Absolutely. So, Elle, I know that you're always pouring into people and helping people and inspiring people through the work that you're doing. But if you could share with our audience, what are some things that are a must for you to continue to pour into your cup first?
Thank you for that. Definitely, every day includes meditation and prayer,
Hmm.
connection with my true higher source.
Hmm.
Every day includes some kind of movement, minimum of 20 minutes, something that I really enjoy. I despise the word exercise. It's too close. It's too close to exorcism, right? It just no, why? And then get into nature. So those are my top threes. My day, my cup gets refilled when I'm connected to my true source, when I'm moving my body, and when I'm in nature. And so grateful for how amazing this life and this planet and all of my relationships are.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So, Al, what is next for your brand, your company? 2024 just got started. So, what are some aspirations that you got going on for yourself?
Yeah, I'm so excited. So a couple of things. I'm going to start speaking on Ritz-Carlton cruise lines and to get my message out even bigger, right, grander.
Hmm.
And I created finally for the first time. I work with people. I call it Kickstart. Just
Hmm.
let's do 4 weeks and let's get you going, right? Let's
Hmm.
change the words. Let's da 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 da, and then we can do accountability after that.
Right.
But I finally leaned into this year. I'm doing now year-long coaching because
Mm.
I want you to no longer need me. I want you to just know this stuff inside out, upside down, and backwards to be able to share it with your coworkers and your family.
Hmm.
And so that's a big step for me to make a year-long commitment with people.
Hmm.
But I understand, and I finally understand that if I want sustainable success for my clients, that's the best way to go.
I love it. I love it. So, if anybody wanted to work with you, book you for a coaching, call you up for a speaking or a podcast, how can they find you?
So I always like to give people my link tree because everybody likes different platforms. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Some people prefer, I'm old school, right? I'm 61. So just, just email me. I'm sorry, just email me, but I'm open to everything. I'm open to texting. I'm open to messaging, whatever you like. Here's the thing, Michael, just reach out to me. Stop thinking about it.
Mm.
Stop putting it in a notepad and then nothing happens.
Right.
Because I don't know how I can support you until you tell me what it is that you desire. And chances are people don't know that. So let's just chat.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and being a guest on the Overcoming Adversity podcast. This has been a pleasure to have you here to hear your story.
Thank you. My pleasure too, Michael. Thank you for
Absolutely.
doing this. All of these podcasts speak to so many people. You are a blessing.
Thank you so much. Guys, thank you for listening to this episode of the Overcoming Adversity podcast. Until next time, God bless.
Ain't complain at all. Couple dollars in my pocket, know it come and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier. Thank God for clarity.